Hey there, brave souls. Welcome to Verified Fears, the channel that dives deep into the most spine-chilling true stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about safety, reality, and the darkness that lurks just beyond our understanding. Today, we're venturing into the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, a landscape that's as beautiful as it is terrifying. These aren't just mountains. They're ancient witnesses to human darkness, holding secrets that have remained buried for generations. What seems like a peaceful wilderness is actually a hunting ground for unspeakable horrors that defy imagination. The stories you're about to hear aren't campfire tales or fabricated legends. These are verified accounts, real experiences from people who have survived encounters that will shake you to your core. Each narrative is a window into a world where the line between reality and nightmare becomes devastatingly thin. We've meticulously researched and verified every single story, ensuring that what you're about to hear is as true as it is terrifying. The Appalachian Mountains have a way of keeping secrets. They've watched countless stories unfold in their dense forests, deep valleys, and isolated trails. Some stories are so disturbing that they'll haunt you long after the video ends. These mountains don't just hold memories. They hold warnings about the darkness that exists in the most unexpected places. Viewer discretion is absolutely necessary. The next hour will take you on a journey through 12 of the most disturbing true stories ever recorded in the Appalachian wilderness. Stories of survival, of unexplained encounters, of human predators, and something potentially worse. These aren't just horror stories. They're survival accounts that will make you think twice about ever stepping into the wilderness alone. If you're new to Verified Fears, this is our promise to you. Every story is true, every account is verified, and every experience is as real as the terror that comes with it. We don't sensationalize, we investigate. We don't fabricate, we reveal. Subscribe now, because the truth is far more terrifying than any fiction you've ever encountered. Take a deep breath, lock your doors, and prepare yourself for 12 disturbing true Appalachian Mountains horror stories that will prove once and for all that some places are better left unexplored. Our first story takes us into the heart of southern Appalachia, where the mountains are more than just a landscape. They're a living, breathing entity with secrets that run deeper than the oldest rock formations. This happened during the summer of 2014, a time that now feels like another lifetime, yet remains etched into the narrator's memory with terrifying clarity. Growing up in western North Carolina, just a half-hour drive from Asheville, our storyteller knew these mountains weren't just a place. They were in his blood. The rolling hills, deep hollows, and dense forests are part of one of the oldest landscapes on Earth, with rock formations dating back over 1 billion years. But with such ancient land comes a sense of mystery, an eerie blend of the haunting and the awe-inspiring that has shaped the region's folklore for generations. The journey began innocently enough. A road trip with his girlfriend, originally planned to visit her family in Canada, took an unexpected turn when his grandmother fell ill. What was supposed to be a simple detour would become a nightmare that would forever change how he viewed the mountains he thought he knew so well. The first leg of their trip was nothing short of incredible. His girlfriend, experiencing the Appalachian landscape for the first time, was completely in awe of the rolling hills, endless forests, and changing sky colors. They made stops in Buffalo, restocked supplies, and caught a breathtaking sunset in Pittsburgh. But it was once they crossed into West Virginia that the true sense of wilderness and isolation began to settle in. The roads stretched endlessly, weaving through dense, shadowed forests, with only occasional small towns breaking up miles of unspoiled nature. As darkness fell, they found themselves at a remote gas station, the kind of place that looks like it's straight out of a horror movie. His girlfriend even joked about it, her nervous laughter barely masking the unease that was already creeping in. While refueling, a woman appeared behind him. Something was immediately wrong. She was in her 50s, but something made her seem much older. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, her presence sending an immediate chill down his spine. When he turned to address her, The gas station attendant's reaction would prove that something far more sinister was at play. The attendant's demeanor changed instantly. Without warning, he grabbed a Savage 110 Engage rifle and began scanning the windows with a seriousness that sent our narrator's heart racing. The message was clear and chilling. The woman was not alone. She was part of a group that lived deep in the mountains, a group associated with mysterious disappearances that local law enforcement seemed reluctant to investigate. What followed was a night of pure terror. The woman and her group would track them down, attempting to approach their van in the dead of night. Only a loaded handgun and nerves of steel would keep them safe from whatever predatory group was hunting them through the mountain wilderness. Years later, the memory remains vivid. The mountains that were once a source of pride and comfort had revealed a darkness our narrator could never have imagined. Those wide, empty eyes of the woman at the gas station became a permanent reminder that in the Appalachian Mountains, nothing is ever quite what it seems. This is more than just a story of survival. It's a warning about the hidden dangers that lurk in the most unexpected places, about the thin line between civilization and something far more primitive and terrifying. The mountains have their secrets, and some are better left undiscovered. Our second story takes us deep into the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a landscape that promises solitude, but delivers something far more terrifying. This is a tale of a solo hiker who sought peace and found something entirely different, an encounter that would shatter his perception of wilderness forever. A few years back, after a rough breakup and a job that had drained his spirit, our narrator decided to take 2 weeks driving through the Blue Ridge and Smoky Mountains. With nothing but a cooler of food, a tent, and a worn-out trail map, he set out looking for stillness. Mid-October had settled in, with nights dipping below freezing and most summer tourists long gone. The trails were quiet, almost too quiet. His plan was simple: park at a gravel turnout, hike a few miles into a remote section just west of Klingman's Dome, set up camp near a creek, and return the next morning. The trail itself was narrow and overgrown, requiring him to push branches aside and climb over fallen trees. He passed no one, not a single soul. The silence was so complete, so unnatural, that it should have been his first warning. Around 3:30 in the afternoon, he reached a clearing beside a creek. The trees formed a tight canopy overhead, and the water ran smooth over mossy rocks. It was exactly what he'd been hoping for: isolated, shaded, peaceful. He set up his tent, soaked his feet in the cold creek, and prepared for a night of solitude. As darkness fell, the world around him became absolutely black, with his headlamp barely cutting through the intense darkness. Despite being an experienced camper, something felt off that night. He couldn't fall asleep, experiencing a pressure in his chest, a primal instinct telling him something was wrong. And then he heard it. A cough, not an animal sound, not the forest shifting, but a distinctly human sound somewhere near the trail. When he stepped out of his tent and shined his flashlight, what he saw would haunt him forever. At the edge of the creek, just 10 to 15 feet away, sat a woman. Her back was turned, but something was terribly wrong. Her long hair was tangled, her dress torn on the right side. She sat completely still, looking utterly lost. What terrified him most was her complete lack of response. Despite being directly in his flashlight beam, she didn't move, didn't react, as if she wasn't entirely real. And then, in an instant, she was gone. Completely vanished. Searching the area revealed only bare footprints pressed into the damp earth, proof that she had been there, but no explanation for her sudden disappearance. The rest of the night was a blur of terror. He packed up his tent in record time, constantly looking over his shoulder. The image of the woman potentially charging out of the trees burned into his mind. When he finally reached park rangers to report what he'd seen, he knew how crazy it would sound. A woman, perfectly still, then suddenly gone, like a phantom of the mountains. Years later, the memory remains as vivid as the night it happened. Was she a hallucination born of exhaustion? A ghost haunting these ancient mountains? or something else entirely? The Appalachian wilderness keeps its secrets close, and some encounters defy all logical explanation. This is more than just a ghost story. It's a chilling reminder that in the depths of these mountains, the line between reality and something beyond our understanding is razor thin. Some places are not meant to be explored. Some silences are not meant to be broken. Our third story delves into a deeply personal investigation of family mystery and mountain folklore, a tale that proves some secrets are better left buried in the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains. This is a story about a fire lookout tower, a grandfather's hidden journals, and an encounter that would challenge everything our narrator thought they knew about family history. About a year and a half ago, our storyteller finally worked up the courage to go through the belongings of their grandfather, who had passed away 3 years earlier. No one in the family had wanted much of his stuff, but our narrator had inherited most of it. Among the dusty boxes was a stack of old journals that had remained untouched, too painful to explore immediately after his grandfather's death. When they finally mustered the courage to read these journals, what they discovered changed everything. Buried in one of the older notebooks was a series of entries about Rich Mountain Fire Tower that was unlike anything they'd ever seen from their typically calm and steady grandfather. These entries were scattered, almost frantic, a stark contrast to his usual measured writing. The journals described sleepless nights and an overwhelming sense of being watched. The grandfather wrote about footsteps on the stairs in the middle of the night, becoming convinced that something or someone was climbing the tower after dark, stopping just short of entering. He even mentioned being afraid of what might be under the bed, a sentiment completely unlike the brave, unfazed man our narrator had known. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a need to understand what had happened, our narrator planned a trip to the Rich Mountain Fire Tower. This wasn't just a casual hiking expedition. It was a deeply personal mission to uncover the truth behind their grandfather's mysterious and troubling journal entries. The hike itself was beautiful, a typical Appalachian Trail experience in early spring. Cool air, quiet woods, and the endless carpet of trees awakening after winter. When they finally reached the tower and found it empty, there was a sense of both relief and anticipation. They settled in, reading more of the grandfather's journals by headlamp, trying to understand the source of his terror. The first night seemed calm, almost too calm. A sharp, metallic thud in the middle of the night, like something hitting the metal stairs, was quickly dismissed as nothing unusual. But as the nights progressed, something began to feel deeply wrong. On the final night, everything changed. Our narrator awoke to find the hatch slightly open, just enough to let in cold air and an overwhelming sense of dread. And then they saw it. Hanging from the ceiling of the fire lookout was a completely black figure. It had the shape of a person, but no discernible details, just a pure black silhouette that vanished the moment they fully registered its presence. But the most chilling detail: the boots our narrator had carefully left outside the hatch were now completely gone, vanished without a trace, with no possible explanation. The hatch had been latched from the inside, and no animal could have moved so silently. Fleeing the tower barefoot, blistered, and terrified, our narrator has since tried to find any explanation. They've searched forums, old trail reports, ranger logs, and local message boards, but found nothing. No other accounts, no explanations. Just silence. The question remains: could this be the same presence that haunted their grandfather decades ago? Or is the mind's ability to fill in blanks more terrifying than any supernatural explanation? This is more than just a ghost story. It's a chilling exploration of inherited fear, of the thin line between family legacy and unexplained terror. In the Appalachian Mountains, some mysteries are passed down through generations, waiting to be confronted. In the world of hiking and outdoor adventures, there's an unspoken code of trust among those who share the trail. Our fourth story shatters that illusion forever, revealing the terrifying reality that sometimes the greatest threat comes from those you least expect. This is a tale of three friends, the Appalachian Trail, and a night that would change their understanding of wilderness survival forever. It was early October when three friends, Ashley, Brooke, and our narrator, set out to tackle a remote stretch of the Appalachian Trail in southwest Virginia. These weren't novice hikers, but experienced trekkers who had slowly been working their way through the trail, section by section. The first day seemed perfect. Crisp autumn air, leaves turning, barely another soul in sight. They passed only one other hiker, who barely acknowledged their presence, adding to the sense of isolation that they had sought. As darkness approached, their initial plan to stay at a trail shelter was quickly abandoned. Three men already occupied the shelter, their intense, unsettling stares making the women immediately uncomfortable. Ashley, in particular, felt something was deeply wrong. They pressed on, finding a hidden clearing far off the beaten path, believing they had escaped any potential threat. The night started like any other camping trip. They set up their tent, cooked a meal, and turned in early. But around 3 a.m., everything changed. Footsteps, not the random sounds of wildlife, but deliberate, human footsteps moving around their campsite. Both Ashley and Brooke were already awake, their eyes wide with fear. Our narrator reached for the pistol she always carried, sliding out of the tent as quietly as possible. What followed was a night of pure terror. Movement between the trees, figures ducking behind trunks, the realization that they were being stalked, not by animals, but by multiple people with clear predatory intent. The most chilling moment came when our narrator spotted 4 distinct lights down near a creek bed, about 50 yards away. 4 figures, standing perfectly still, watching. One of them pulled something from his waist, a machete gleaming in the darkness. This was no random encounter. This was a calculated hunt. Ashley's response was immediate and decisive. A warning shot fired into the air, making it clear they were armed and prepared to defend themselves. But the true horror was the realization that these weren't simple robbers or opportunistic criminals. Something darker was at play. A deliberate, sustained pursuit that suggested these predators were hunting for something more sinister than mere material gain. They hiked through the rest of the night, abandoning the trail, moving straight through brush and trees. No path, no direction, just pure survival instinct. The next day, they continued, scratched, bleeding, barely eating. At one point, our narrator caught a glimpse of someone far back in the trees, just standing and watching. It wasn't until they finally reached the road and flagged down a truck that they began to feel safe. But the terror wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, they learned that 2 solo hikers had gone missing in the same area. The police claimed the cases weren't connected, but something felt fundamentally wrong. This isn't just a story of a hiking trip gone wrong. It's a chilling testament to the predators that exist in the most isolated places, to the thin veneer of civilization that can disappear in an instant. The Appalachian Trail, a symbol of natural beauty and adventure, revealed its darker side, a place where human hunters can turn the wilderness into their own hunting ground. Some places are not meant to be explored. Some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. And some nights in the mountains hold secrets that are better left in darkness. Road trips can be a gateway to adventure, but for some, they become a nightmare that defies all rational explanation. Our 5th story is a harrowing account of a journey through the most isolated stretches of West Virginia, a drive that would transform from a simple late-night travel into a fight for survival against an unknown threat. What began as a typical nighttime drive quickly became anything but ordinary. Our narrator was used to long drives, especially in an old car without air conditioning that forced most of the journey to happen after dark. This particular night started around 10:30 p.m., with an estimated arrival time close to 5 in the morning. The destination was less important than the journey itself, a drive through one of West Virginia's most remote Appalachian stretches. The road was swallowed in total darkness, broken only occasionally by distant lights from isolated homes perched on distant hills. The solitude was absolute, the silence so complete that it felt like the car itself was an intruder in this unchanging, frozen landscape. It was during one of these stretches that something caught their attention. A sudden, intense light, like a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness for just a few seconds between the trees. But the real terror began when an urgent need to relieve themselves forced a stop on the side of the road, surrounded by dense, menacing forest. In an instant, a man came screaming out of the shadows, a long rifle pointed directly at their chest. The demand was simple and terrifying. Let him into the car, or have the car taken by force. Trapped and terrified, our narrator was forced to comply. For the longest 10 minutes of their life, the man kept the rifle trained on them, his gaze wild and bloodshot, more animal than human. He kept glancing nervously at the mirrors, his body coiled tight like a spring ready to snap. The situation escalated dramatically when their headlights revealed a chilling scene, a man lying apparently unconscious in the middle of the road, with a car partially hidden in the forest. It was an obvious trap. As they tried to swerve, 2 men burst from the trees, one opening fire in their direction. What followed was a desperate escape. Driving off the main road onto a narrow, muddy trail, they killed the headlights and sat in complete darkness, hearing a powerful vehicle roar past, seconds away from potentially finding them. The man in their car was clearly running from something, or someone, far more dangerous. After nearly an hour of tense silence, they dropped the man off in a small town. He disappeared without looking back, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions. When our narrator finally contacted the police, they conducted a thorough investigation, but ultimately, the case was closed with no further developments. The most haunting part? The complete uncertainty. Who was the man? What was he running from? What was the true nature of the threat that pursued them through the dark Appalachian night? This is more than just a story of a strange encounter. It's a chilling reminder that in the most isolated places, the line between victim and predator can blur in an instant. The Appalachian Mountains hold secrets that some are willing to kill to protect, and some journeys are better left untaken. Some roads lead to adventure, others lead to nightmare. And in the depths of the Appalachian wilderness, those roads often look exactly the same. In the heart of Swords Creek, a small community nestled in the southwestern corner of Virginia, there exists an unspoken code, a set of rules passed down through generations about respecting the mountains and the unknown that dwells within them. Our 6th story is a chilling testament to what happens when those sacred rules are broken, and the consequences that follow are beyond imagination. Our narrator has lived in this community his entire life, raised with a deep understanding that the Appalachian Mountains are more than just a landscape. They're a living, breathing entity with its own set of laws. His grandfather had always taught him that the mountains demand respect, that there are things in these woods that shouldn't be questioned, only respected. We don't need to understand everything, he would say. We just need to respect them. The story begins in the aftermath of a devastating loss. Reggie, one of his closest friends, had died in a tragic accident, leaving a wound that still felt raw even a year later. On the anniversary of Reggie's death, he and James, the remaining member of their tight-knit trio, gathered to remember their friend, drinking and reminiscing about memories that now felt both precious and painful. It was a warm early spring night, the kind that feels heavy with unspoken emotions. As they sat on the back patio, something felt off. The narrator's 2 cats began meowing in a way that was deeply unsettling, a sound that spoke of something fundamentally wrong. These were cats that typically roamed during the day but never approached the windows at night. After walking James home, a 7-minute walk that would break one of the most fundamental rules about the mountains, something changed. As he returned home, the forest fell into an unnatural silence. And then it happened. A whisper of his name coming from the trees, a voice that sounded exactly like Reggie's. In that moment of vulnerability, grief, and alcohol, he was tempted to step into the tree line. Something deep inside was pulling him forward, ready to cross that symbolic threshold between the known world and the mysterious forest. But at the last moment, a lightning bolt of realization stopped him. This couldn't be Reggie. He had been at the funeral. He had seen the body. The days that followed were increasingly terrifying. His cats, normally bold and independent, refused to go near the windows after dark. Something was watching, something that felt malevolent and patient. The unspoken rules of the mountains had been broken, and now something was coming to collect its due. A seemingly innocent knock at the door would reveal the true extent of the terror. When he checked, no one was there. A text from James confirmed he was still at work, but the front door stood wide open, a door that had been locked, violated by something unseen. This is more than just a ghost story. It's a profound meditation on the ancient relationship between humans and the wilderness, a reminder that some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. The mountains have their own language, their own justice, and when you break their rules, the price is beyond anything you could imagine. In the Appalachian Mountains, respect is not just a courtesy. It's a matter of survival. The most terrifying monsters are not the ones we can see, but the ones that watch from just beyond our understanding, waiting, always waiting. And in these mountains, they never forget. They never forgive. Trail running isn't just a sport. It's a way of escaping the noise of civilization, a method of finding clarity in the most isolated places. But for some, those isolated places hide more than just peace. Our seventh story is a chilling account of a solo journey through the most remote stretch of the Appalachian Trail, where the line between solitude and stalking becomes terrifyingly thin. Our narrator has been a trail runner for over a decade. What started as short-day hikes in college evolved into multi-day loops and high-elevation passes. Out there, away from the constant buzz of phones and responsibilities, he feels most like himself. Not pretending to have his life together, but truly alive. Last spring, he planned a solo trip through the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, a stretch that runs from the town of Monson to just outside Baxter State Park, the most isolated section of the entire Appalachian Trail. The trip was supposed to be simple. 2 nights, 3 days of pure wilderness. He started early, around 7 a.m., with the air still holding a bite of cold. Packed with his GPS, enough food and water, and a bear canister, he was prepared for anything. Or so he thought. The first day passed with an eerie emptiness. No wildlife, no other hikers, just absolute unbroken silence. By the second day, something began to feel deeply wrong. It started with boot prints, tracks that hadn't been there the day before. They weren't fresh, but recently made, zigzagging in a pattern that made no sense. A candy wrapper caught his attention. Not just any trash, but carefully folded with an almost deliberate precision that sent chills down his spine. The footprints continued, becoming more erratic. Whoever or whatever was making them was walking forward and back, circling, moving in a way that suggested someone who was either lost, drunk, or something far more sinister. Around noon he heard footsteps, human footsteps, about 30 or 40 feet behind him up on a ridge. When he called out, only silence answered. That night, the terror escalated. A candy wrapper appeared on top of his pack, placed deliberately, like a calling card from an unseen stalker. Around 3 a.m., he heard movement. Not random forest sounds, but deliberate pacing just outside the firelight. Heavy breathing, as if someone was worked up, watching, waiting. The final horror came as he was heading back to his car. A man appeared among the trees, scruffy beard, clothes that looked a decade old, standing perfectly still, watching. When the man raised a gun, our narrator ran like his life depended on it, which it absolutely did. At the ranger station, his report was met with polite but obvious disbelief. They suggested he might have encountered a transient or off-grid hiker, nothing more. But then the online messages started coming in. Other hikers who had experienced similar encounters on that same stretch of trail. A woman who found strange papers with children's names near her tent. Another who was followed for days by someone she never saw but could hear. This is more than just a hiking horror story. It's evidence of something darker existing in the most isolated places of the Appalachian Trail. Something that stalks, that watches, that leaves deliberate signs of its presence. A predator that moves in the spaces between civilization and wilderness, hunting in plain sight. Some trails are meant to be explored, some are meant to be avoided, and some hunters are not the kind you can see coming until it's too late. There are places in this world that carry generational trauma, landscapes that remember long after humans have forgotten. Our eighth story is a haunting exploration of a family's connection to a forgotten corner of the Appalachian Mountains, a place where the line between memory and haunting becomes devastatingly blurred. Born in Wyoming County, West Virginia, our narrator comes from a part of the world most people don't even know exists. No hospitals, no Walmart, not even a traffic light. This is a forgotten stretch of the Appalachian landscape, a place you don't come to unless you absolutely have to, and even then, you don't stay long. At 23, our narrator left, believing they had escaped the mountain's grip. But some routes run deeper than any road can carry you. The trip back began with a tragedy, an uncle's sudden death that required sorting through his belongings. It was the middle of January, a cold so deep it seemed to freeze not just the ground, but time itself. The drive from Welch to War is never pleasant. Narrow roads, blind curves, old coal trucks barreling around like they own the place. But it's more than the physical landscape that's oppressive. It's the feeling that the mountains are actively swallowing you with each mile. The uncle's house was a sagging structure at the base of a ridge, surrounded by rusting cars and stripped appliances. A hoarder in the truest sense, he had filled every inch of space with junk, a man who couldn't stand the silence. Our narrator understood this more than they wanted to admit. The silence was the first warning. It wasn't just quiet. It was a silence that pressed into the eardrums, making you hear the blood in your own veins. No distant traffic, no neighbors, just the wind through trees and the occasional crack of something shifting in the woods. And those woods, they felt alive, not in some mystical, enchanted forest way, but alive like something was watching, waiting, breathing. A hike up to an old logging road became the moment everything changed. About a mile up, our narrator found a clearing where the ridge dropped off, offering a view of the entire hollow. The house looked like a mere speck, the road to town barely visible. But something was wrong. The woods seemed to be leaning toward them, a sensation impossible to explain, but impossible to ignore. And then they saw it. Footprints in the soft, leaf-covered dirt. Not fresh, but recent enough to hold their shape. They trailed off toward a steep, overgrown terrain that no one would choose to walk unless absolutely necessary. But it was the figure among the trees that stopped our narrator cold. Deep among the trees, far enough that only a suggestion of shape could be made out, something, or someone, was standing perfectly still. Shadowed between two tree trunks where the light didn't quite reach. No movement, not even the sway of shifting weight. But our narrator knew, with absolute certainty, that it was looking directly at them. What followed was more than just fear. It was a strange sense of recognition, something old, unsettling, yet weirdly comforting. Like this presence was familiar, something they had grown up with. Without calling out or trying to rationalize what they were seeing, our narrator ran. They didn't look back. They didn't want to know if it moved. When they later asked their older brother about the experience, he mentioned something their grandmother had once named, but refused to elaborate further. Years have passed, but the dream remains constant. A recurring vision of that trail, of that presence, lingering just beyond understanding. Their grandmother's words echo through time. "You don't need ghosts when you have the mountains. They'll eat you just the same." This is more than a ghost story. It's a profound meditation on inheritance, of land, of memory, of the dark spaces between what we know and what we fear. In the Appalachian Mountains, some presences are passed down through blood, waiting to be acknowledged. Some places don't let you leave. Some memories don't fade. And some watchers have been waiting far longer than we can comprehend. Some journeys begin with a simple desire for peace, only to descend into a nightmare that defies all rational explanation. Our ninth story is a chilling account of a solo hiking trip in the Appalachian Mountains that would reveal the terrifying reality lurking just beneath the surface of what seemed like an idyllic wilderness. Early spring had always been a time of renewal for our narrator, a nature lover from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. To them, the real new year doesn't begin in January, but when everything starts growing, blooming, coming back to life. This year's adventure was supposed to be simple: 3 days of complete immersion in nature, completely off the grid. The first 2 days passed peacefully. Our narrator knew the area well, confident enough to explore less traveled routes where true solitude still existed. Places where you could go hours, sometimes days, without seeing another soul. They returned to a secluded clearing from a previous trip, 2 open spaces separated by a small, still water pond, surrounded by shade and silence. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. While gathering wood for a campfire, something caught their eye, partially hidden in the undergrowth. What began as a casual exploration turned into a moment of pure, primal terror. A skull, badly decayed and covered in moss. A few feet ahead, a long bone that was unmistakably human, a tibia that sent chills down their spine. The timing made the discovery even more unsettling. The night before, they had been watching downloaded videos about local folklore and serial killers who had operated in these mountain regions. The combination of those videos and the sudden discovery of human remains created a mental cocktail of pure, paralyzing fear. As night fell, the forest came alive with sounds that defied explanation. Around 11 p.m., footsteps and movement in the bushes began to echo through the campsite. Then came a violent thrashing from the direction of the pond, frantic, human-like sounds that suggested pure panic or struggle. The moment of true horror came when our narrator stepped outside the tent and saw something that would be forever burned into their memory. In the pale moonlight, a completely naked man was running wildly through the trees. It was a sight so bizarre, so disturbing, that it seemed almost comical if not for the absolute terror of the moment. But the strangeness didn't end there. The food bag, carefully hung away from the campsite, was torn apart, but not in a way consistent with animal attacks. No claw marks, no typical bear destruction, just a deliberate, almost methodical destruction that suggested something far more sinister. What followed was a panicked escape, driving away from the campsite as quickly as possible, trying to make sense of what had just happened. A call to the police yielded little results, with the focus primarily on the human remains discovered. Months later, a chance encounter on Reddit would provide the most shocking twist. Another camper named Derek had been at the same pond on the same night. His story revealed a perfectly logical explanation. He had been swimming when a bear began destroying his clothes, forcing him to run naked through the forest. What began as a terrifying encounter of potential murder and supernatural horror became an incredible story of misunderstanding, a testament to how perception can transform the most mundane situation into a nightmare. This is more than just a story of a camping trip gone wrong. It's a chilling reminder that in the Appalachian Mountains, reality is often stranger than fiction. Sometimes the most horrifying monsters are the ones created by our own imagination, lurking in the spaces between what we see and what we think we know. In these mountains, nothing is ever quite as it seems, and sometimes the truth is far more surprising than the horror we imagine. Some encounters begin so casually that you could never anticipate the nightmare that's about to unfold. Our 10th story is a chilling account of a seemingly routine night drive that would become a terrifying game of survival through the darkest heart of the Appalachian Mountains. It was a little past 3 in the morning, and our narrator was driving home after a long night shift at a warehouse near an old strip mine in Man, West Virginia. These were roads less traveled, a stretch of highway between an old mining facility and a small neighborhood that saw almost no traffic, especially midweek. Exhaustion hung heavy, with black coffee and muscle memory being the only things keeping him alert. What caught his eye initially seemed unremarkable, a figure standing just off the shoulder of the road. At first, he thought it was a deer, but as he drew closer, he realized it was a young man, hoodie pulled up, hands stuffed in his pockets, face angled down as if trying to avoid being seen. Against every better instinct, our narrator made a decision that would change everything. He pulled over and offered the hitchhiker a ride. The young man was unremarkable in most ways. He gave a name, though our narrator would later be unable to recall it, and asked to be dropped off somewhere south. His voice was flat, his demeanor distant. He sat stiffly, holding a beat-up backpack close to his chest, looking like someone who had seen more hardship than his years should allow. But as the miles passed, subtle details began to paint a more disturbing picture. The hitchhiker's boots were caked with dried mud, not the kind from hiking trails, but something darker, more ominous. His jeans were stained with what looked like more than just dirt, dark patterns near the knees and thighs that suggested something far more sinister. A roadblock would prove to be the turning point. 2 patrol cars, lights flashing, officers checking IDs. The hitchhiker tensed visibly when an officer approached. When asked his name, he gave a different one than he had told our narrator, a detail that immediately set alarm bells ringing. The officer's words would send a chill down our narrator's spine. Bodies had been found. The atmosphere in the car transformed instantly. The hitchhiker's demeanor changed, his entire body language shifting to something more predatory, more dangerous. A sudden message on the hitchhiker's phone triggered an explosive reaction. He demanded to be let out of the car immediately, becoming increasingly aggressive. Our narrator pulled over, and the young man disappeared into the darkness as quickly as he had appeared. Attempting to report the encounter proved futile. The police seemed to have no record of any bodies, no investigation, nothing. It was as if the entire encounter had been a fever dream. The only proof, a patch of dirt left on the passenger seat of the car. Years later, the encounter remains an unsolved mystery. No news stories, no follow-up, no explanation. Just silence, and the lingering question of what truly happened that night on a dark Appalachian highway. This is more than just a story of a strange hitchhiker. It's a chilling reminder that the most dangerous predators often look the most ordinary. In the Appalachian Mountains, darkness takes many forms, and sometimes it hitches a ride right beside you. Some encounters are best left on the side of the road. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. And in these mountains, what remains unspoken is often far more terrifying than what is said. Some journeys test the boundaries of love, survival, and the lengths a parent will go to protect their child. Our 11th story is a harrowing account of a family hiking trip that would reveal the most terrifying predators lurk not in the shadows of the wilderness, but in plain sight. Claire and her husband had always been passionate hikers, lovers of the raw, unforgiving contact with nature that feels simultaneously threatening and purifying. Before their daughter Leah was born, they had explored several stretches of the Appalachian Mountains, from the popular trails of North Carolina to the dense, remote paths of West Virginia. But parenthood had temporarily paused their adventures until now. After their daughter's first birthday, they felt ready to return to their beloved trails. They chose the Ron Highlands, a section known for its remoteness and almost unreal beauty. They weren't interested in busy, safe trails. They wanted that pure, solitary connection to the forest, far from crowded paths and occasional hiking families. The first couple of days passed uneventfully. They crossed paths with a few other hikers, most offering quick, friendly hellos. But one couple stood out, a woman with curly red hair and a dirty straw hat, and a man who was tall, skinny, with a scruffy beard and eyes that seemed perpetually on edge. Their questions were oddly specific: how long they'd been out there, whether their daughter slept well in the tent, if they were afraid of wild animals. The woman's behavior was particularly unsettling. She reached out as if to hold Leah, an attempt Claire instinctively blocked. It was one of those moments where everything seems normal, but something feels fundamentally wrong, a tension in the air that spoke of danger lurking just beneath the surface. On the third night, they set up camp in a small clearing about 500 meters off the main trail. Hidden among tall trees and a bed of moss that seemed to absorb every sound, it appeared perfect. But when they stepped out of the tent the next morning, everything had changed. The ground was covered in human footprints, multiple sets that had walked around their campsite during the night. But what truly terrified them was the disappearance of Leah's personal items. Her bottle, her silicone plate, her colorful utensils, all gone. The food remained untouched, but these specific items had been deliberately taken. Claire was convinced it had been the couple they had encountered, a theory that filled her with a primal, maternal terror. Their next night became a war of survival. They took shifts watching, with Claire insisting on taking the first watch. The horror reached its peak when Claire woke her husband, claiming someone was standing in a thick patch of vegetation just beyond their firelight. When he investigated, only silence greeted him. But moments later, the unthinkable happened. The woman from earlier was suddenly in their tent, pointing their own gun at them. The man was halfway inside, threatening their entire family. In a desperate move, our narrator threw ash from the fire into her face, knocking the gun away in a moment of pure parental protection. They fled the next morning, reporting everything to the police. Initially, the case was closed due to lack of evidence, but weeks later, they received a chilling update. Another couple had reported a similar incident on the same trail, with descriptions matching the same pair. This is more than just a camping horror story. It's a profound exploration of the predators that exist in the most unexpected places. The Appalachian wilderness became a hunting ground, with their family as the prey. Some journeys change you forever. Some forests hold secrets darker than the deepest shadows. And some hunters prey on the most vulnerable, targeting not just individuals, but entire families. In the Appalachian Mountains, the most terrifying predators don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look just like anyone else. Some road trips are about discovery. Others are about survival. Our final story is a terrifying journey through the most isolated stretches of the Appalachian Mountains, where the line between traveler and prey becomes devastatingly thin. For this narrator, the Appalachian route was more than just a journey. It was a passion. A woman who had driven this route 6 times before, she knew every scenic 2-lane road from the top of New England to the heart of Dixie. This time, she wasn't alone. Her cat Miley accompanied her, making this a multi-day adventure through landscapes that promised both beauty and isolation. Vermont's Green Mountains offered the perfect spot for a secluded camp. An old dirt road, barely used since a new route was constructed, promised minimal human contact. She knew exactly where to set up to be seen by the fewest number of people. The first 2 days passed peacefully, a calm, almost idyllic experience of nature and solitude. But everything changed around 3 p.m. on the 3rd day. Her cat Miley became restless, meowing repeatedly, creating an atmosphere of unease. When a car approached, something felt fundamentally wrong. 3 men inside, staring directly at her with an intensity that sent immediate chills down her spine. The van slowed slightly as it passed, the men's eyes never leaving her. Something inside her knew, instantly and absolutely, that she was in danger. This was one of those moments that women instinctively understand. A threat that defies rational explanation, but demands immediate action. Without hesitation, she grabbed her backpack, locked the van, and grabbed Miley, hiding in the surrounding vegetation. Her instincts proved correct. Not 2 minutes later, the van returned. The 3 men got out, calmly rummaging through her belongings. One peeked inside the van, talking to the others. Another began searching the area, trying to spot her hiding place. Then came the gunshot. A bullet struck her van's window as one of the men attempted to unlock the door. Miley became increasingly agitated, and our narrator was terrified the cat would reveal their location. With her vision blurring and sweat trickling down her forehead, she began to run, trying to get as far away as possible. Her phone was dead, something she hadn't realized until she tried to call for help. With no other option, she remembered a small gas station about a 30-minute walk away. Every branch snapped behind her became a signal to run faster. adrenaline pushing her forward. The gas station appeared empty, with a lone man behind the counter. Every doubt crossed her mind. Was he also a threat? Would he hand her over to the men pursuing her? But with no other choice, she walked in, asking for help. The man didn't hesitate. He immediately called the police and told her to hide in the storage room. When the pursuing men arrived, he confronted them, armed and determined. The police arrived shortly after, escorting her back to her van to collect her belongings and booking her a hotel room with a guard stationed outside. 2 days later, she returned home with her parents. Miley, now a changed cat, constantly hiding from loud noises, traumatized by their experience. The incident had stolen more than just a peaceful road trip. It had shattered their sense of safety. This is more than just a story of a narrow escape. It's a chilling reminder that the most dangerous predators often hide in plain sight, that the isolation of the Appalachian Mountains can become a hunting ground for those who prey on the vulnerable. Some journeys change you forever. Some roads lead to adventure, while others lead to a confrontation with the darkest side of human nature. And in the Appalachian wilderness, the line between traveler and prey is often razor-thin. As we come to the end of these 12 disturbing true Appalachian Mountains horror stories, one thing becomes horrifyingly clear. The wilderness is not what we imagine it to be. These are not campfire tales or fictional nightmares. These are verified accounts, real experiences from real people who survived encounters that defy explanation. The Appalachian Mountains are more than just a landscape. They are a living, breathing entity that holds secrets darker than the deepest forest shadows. Each story we've shared today is a testament to the thin line between safety and terror, between the world we understand and the darkness that lurks just beyond our perception. From stalkers tracking hikers through remote trails to mysterious encounters that challenge our understanding of reality, these mountains have witnessed horrors that most of us could never imagine. They are a place where human predators hunt in plain sight, where supernatural phenomena blur the lines of what we believe is possible, and where isolation becomes the most terrifying predator of all. To those who have survived these encounters, we offer our deepest respect. Your stories are more than just warnings. They are acts of survival, of resilience in the face of unimaginable terror. Each narrative proves that the human spirit can endure even in the most horrifying circumstances. But these stories are also a stark reminder. The wilderness is not a playground. The Appalachian Mountains are not a scenic backdrop for adventure. They are a complex, often unforgiving landscape that demands respect, caution, and an understanding that some mysteries are better left undisturbed. For those of you watching who love to explore, who are drawn to the call of the wild, let these stories be your guide. Prepare. Stay alert. Trust your instincts. The line between a peaceful adventure and a fight for survival can be crossed in an instant. If you've been shaken by these accounts, if you've felt the chill of recognition, if these stories have awakened something primal within you, good. That's exactly what Verified Fears is about. We don't just tell stories. We reveal the truth that exists in the shadows, the experiences that challenge everything we think we know about safety, about nature, about human nature itself. These are not just stories, these are warnings. To our brave storytellers who have shared their most terrifying moments, we thank you. Your courage in speaking out might just save someone else from a similar fate. If you have a story that needs to be told, a truth that demands to be heard, reach out to Verified Fears. We listen. We verify. We reveal. Subscribe now. Share this video. Because the most terrifying monsters are the ones we never see coming. Until next time, stay safe. Stay alert. And remember, in the Appalachian Mountains, nothing is ever as it seems.